Good afternoon, all. I take immense pleasure to introduce this session speaker, Dr. E. Shivashankar, Professor NIT Trichy. He has completed his BE Computer Science and Engineering from Madurai Kamaraj University, MTech Computer Science and IT, and PhD from Mannonia Sudarma University. He has a good publication record and guided a good number of PhD and MSY research scholars. He has organized many PETAT FDPs and laid part to enrich the knowledge of aspirant teachers. And he is the person who is working in crop detection and listing. So I want you people to make use of this session, and it will acquire you more knowledge on how data science helps in disease detection and crop detection. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your acceptance of our request. Thank you, sir. You can now start your session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for the nice introduction. Right. So I welcome all you for this session on advanced analytics for crop and disease prediction. Right. Uh, right. So we work in data analytics for a quite longer time. So data is a new class of economic asset like currency and gold. Right. So in the World Economic Forum report 2014, they gave this statement. So data is a new class of economic asset like currency and gold. Right. Later, I think maybe in 2017 or something, even Reliance Geo meeting, GM, annual meeting, Mukesh Ambani declared that data is our new oil. So data is your new oil, right? So once you have data, large volume of data, right? So you can discover knowledge discovery in databases is known as data mining, right? So you'll be able to explore some non-trivial, some useful information from the data. So in today's class, I will teach you the basic analytic techniques. So basic techniques means I'll give an intro about the different analytics uh, techniques that are possible on a data set. So there are totally 10 analytics techniques that we do frequently in a data set. So uh, once we read about the different analytics techniques, then we will work out with some problems. So problems I'm planning to have one problem in k-means clustering. Right. So we'll try to solve a problem in k-means clustering. Right. One problem we'll solve in right, k nearest neighbor classifier, and we'll solve some one problem in auto regression, right? So we'll work with one basic classification technique, one clustering technique, and one predictive analytics techniques using a mathematical model. We'll solve it using a mathematical model, right? To start with, so data analytics means it's the science of examining raw data with the purpose of drawing conclusion from that information, right? So you are going to examine some data to derive some conclusions or to derive some insight from the available data, right? So data analytics is used in many industries to make better decision making. So for better decision making or for informed decision making, they do apply data analytics techniques. In science, it is used to verify or disprove existing models or theories. Right? So if you look into analytics, basically there are four major categories of analytics according to Gartner. Right, one is going to be descriptive analytics, the other is going to be diagnostic analytics, the next is going to be predictive analytics, and the final thing is going to be prescriptive analysis. Right, so something is happening. Right, so now the entire world suffering from a pandemic, right? So what's happening? So summarizing what's happening, right? So the economy is down, people are working from home, right? So to summarize what's happening, we go for descriptive analytics. And why did it happen, right? So why economy is down due to COVID-19, right? So to uh, identify why it happened, we go for diagnostic analytics. And predictive analytics, it gives some insight like what is likely to happen, right? So what is likely to happen, and prescriptive analytics, what should I do about it? So prescriptive analytics gives some insight about what should we do about it. So whenever you have some data, to summarize the data, to perform aggregations, operations on the data, we go for descriptive analytics. To understand the data, to better understand the information, right? Like crop information or climate information, to better understand the information that is available, we go for descriptive analytics. And diagnostic analytics, it helps us to understand why it happened, right? So there will be a bumper harvest during a particular year, right? If you have a good temperature, rainfall, humidity, right, uh, then the harvest may be very high in agricultural field. Whereas if the temperature is very high, or you don't have the monsoon, there is some failure in monsoon and so on, the harvest may be low, right? So diagnostic analysis, it helps us to understand why something happened, right? Why something has happened, something good has happened, or something some right. So there is a huge harvest. Again, you need to go for diagnostic analytics to identify why you get a huge harvest, or if there is some like low harvest of agricultural products due to monsoon failure or something. Again, you can identify it using diagnostic analytics, right? Then you have predictive analytics. So predictive analytics means based on the current data, you need to predict what is likely to happen in the future, right? So, so what is likely to happen is given by predictive analytics, and what should I do about is given by prescriptive analytics, right? So if you look into the data analytics topics, you have 10 major categories. So you'll be working with the classification algorithms, regression techniques, then you have time series analysis, you have prediction techniques, you have clustering analysis, you have sequence rule discovery, you have association rule mining, you have data characterization and data discrimination, and finally outlier mining, right? So these are the 10 major analytics tasks we carry out in a data set. So these are the 10 functionalities of analytics. And each and every task contains many algorithms, right? So classification can have a lot of algorithms like decision trees, Bayesian classifier, K nearest neighbor classifier, support vector machines. You have ensemble classifiers, right? You have advanced techniques like convolutional neural networks and so on. So basically, each and every functionality you have some n number of algorithms, right? To start with, just we'll define what are the techniques available in analytics. So the first technique is classification. So classification maps data into predefined groups or classes. So it maps data into predefined groups or classes. Classification is known as supervised learning, right? So in the case of supervised learning, what happens is that you have your training data set, and the training data set is used to build a model, right? So based on the training data set contains attributes and class label. So using the training data set, we'll construct a model, right? So once the model is constructed based on the training data set, even an unknown record or
Excuse me, sir.
tell me, sir.
Excuse me, sir. Somebody has presented. I request you to present yourself, sir.
So this techniques you are familiar, classification, regression. So this basic, this intro about this techniques you are familiar, right?
Sir, sir, you
You are,
presented against the PPT is not being seen, sir.
madam, presentation is visible or not?
PPT is not visible, sir. So, you presented
Ma'am, somebody
against.
has done present now. Somebody has done present now.
No, who has done the present, please? Now it's visible, sir.
let me share it, check whether
Yes, sir.
will stop sharing and
Yes, sir, I have done it, sir. Sir, hello.
is it visible, madam?
Now it's visible, sir.
Right, madam. Right. So if you look into analytics, we have these major categories. So you would have, so whenever there is a course with analytics, people work with classification algorithms. Classification is a supervised learning technique. So in the case of supervised learning techniques, based on the training data set, you build a model. So training data set contains attributes and the class label. Right. So once a model is being built, given some unknown data set for which a class label is not given, you will be able, you are expected to give the model is expected to give the class label. That's about classification. So in today's class, we'll study some basic techniques like linear regression, multiple regression, and auto regression. So I have some problems in linear regression and logistic regression that I will work on it. So we'll work on three problems. One is one is going to be k-means clustering. So I will show you how k-means clustering works, and other is like k-nearest neighbor classifier, Bayesian belief network, and finally linear regression, multiple regression, and auto regression. Right. So regression assumes that the output value fits into some linear or logistic function. So it assumes that the target data fits into some linear or logistic function y equal to ax plus b, right? So the output y is equal to a function of the input a x plus b. So it may be a linear or logistic function. We call it as regression, right? So time series analysis. So in the case of time series analysis, we'll analyze the value of an attribute as it varies over a period of time. It may be a weekly basis, monthly basis, or hourly basis, or per minute basis, like stock market data, which data varies over a period of time. Right. So here we analyze the value of an attribute as it varies over a period of time. It is called as time series analysis. So it is used in stock market to identify the stock which gives huge returns over a period of time, right? So which stocks are expected to give huge returns over a period of time. It can be analyzed by means of time series analysis. And then we have prediction. So prediction algorithms, they use past data and current data to predict the future data, right? So some algorithms like Bayesian classifier, support vector machines, they can be used for both classification as well as for predictive analytics. So prediction based on the past data and current data will be predicting the future data. And in the case of descriptive data analytics, right? So we have some data, descriptive data analytics. What you can do is clustering. So we'll work out the k-means clustering. So in the case of clustering, clustering is going to be grouping similar objects together. So it is known as unsupervised learning. So it is the objects are grouped on the principle of maximizing the intra-class similarity and minimizing the inter-class similarity. So clustering means grouping similar objects together, right? So we'll group objects like we'll group people based on their telecom service providers, right? So people, there are only 4 service providers: BSNL, Vodafone, and Airtel, right? So we do have only BSNL, Vodafone, Airtel, and then finally Geo, right? So based on the service providers, we'll be able to group customers into 4 different clusters. So clustering means grouping similar objects together. So The objective of any clustering algorithm should maximize the intra-class similarity and minimize the inter-class similarity, right? And then in analytics, we have a topic called association rule mining. So association rule mining is often used to uncover relationship among the data. So it is used to identify some events that occur frequently together in a transaction, right? So association rule mining is often used by the retail sales community to identify the products that are being purchased together in a transaction. And the other analytics technique is going to be sequence discovery. So in the case of sequential discovery, it is used to determine sequential patterns in data, right? So for example, one event occurs that triggers some other event over a period of time. It's known as sequence discovery. So I buy a computer, I am likely to buy an internet connection within a week. It's known as sequence discovery. So the monsoon is very good. It implies that harvest is going to be very good. It's known as sequence discovery. So one event occurs that triggers some other event over a period of time. It's known as sequence discovery. And the other technique is data characterization. So data characterization means it's going to be the summarization of the general characteristics or features of your target class of data. So you have some data set. I need to summarize the features of the target class of data set. Then I need to go for data summarization. Right? So for example, we need to summarize the profile of the people who are using Apple iPhone as their smartphone. Then it's known as data characterization. So you need to find a profile of the people who are cultivating wheat in their agricultural land. So profile of the people or land where sugarcane is cultivated, it's known as data summarization, right? So some crops are cultivated based on the soil type, right? So cotton is cultivated in black soil, right? So if your location contains black soil, the chances for good yield of cotton is going to be more, right? So data characterization helps you to understand the general characteristics or features of target class of data. So why some crops are cultivated in some locations, will be able to identify by means of data characterization. And the output of data characterization can be given in the form of bar chart, pie charts, curves, and multidimensional data cubes. And in the case of data discrimination, we'll be comparing the general features of target class of data with the general features of one or more set of contrasting classes. So my examples are mostly based on financial examples, right? Economical data, right? We would like to compare the software products whose sales increased by 30% in the last financial year with the products whose sales decreased by 30% during the last same period. It is known as data discrimination, right? So we are going to compare the general features of target class of data, then it's known as data discrimination. And finally, outlier mining. So outlier mining means generally any data set contains noise data or exception data that do not comply with the general behavior model of the data. So these data objects are called as outliers, right? So some data is going to be noisy data or outlier data, and we discard this data as noise or exceptions in data mining. But in some applications like fraudulent activity detection, the rarely occurring events are going to be more interesting than the regularly occurring events. And the analysis of outlier data is known as outlier mining, right? So this completes the different types of analytics techniques that can be applied on a data set, right? So the first technique is going to be classification, which is a supervised learning technique, which maps data into predefined groups or classes. So classification it can be used only if it can be used to map data. If the task is to map data into predefined groups or classes, then it's known as classification. So in the case of regression, we assume that the output variable fits into some linear or logistic function, right? Like y equal to ax plus b, y equal to ax plus b, y plus c, sorry, ax1 plus b, x2 plus c, right? You have multiple variables, then it is known as multiple regression. So in the case of regression, it assumes that the output value fits into some linear or logistic function. Then you have time series analysis where we analyze the value of an attribute as it varies over a period of time. And in the case of prediction, based on the past data and current data, we'll be predicting the future data. Then we have clustering. So clustering is an unsupervised learning technique. In the case of clustering, will be grouping similar objects together. And the objective of any clustering algorithm is to maximize the intra-class similarity and minimize the inter-class similarity. Association rule mining is a data mining task to uncover relationship among data. Right? So some events they occur together in a transaction. So people they used to buy some products together in a transaction. So this can be uncovered by means of association rule mining. Whereas the case of sequential rule mining, one event occurs that triggers some other event over a period of time, right? So one event occurs that triggers some other event over a period of time. It's known as sequential rule mining. Then we have data characterization, which summarizes the general features of attributes of a particular class. So you have some data set, you want to generalize or summarize the general features or attributes of about a particular class, we go for data characterization. And in the case of data discrimination, we'll compare the features of two different contrasting classes. And finally, outlier mining. So a data set may contain some data which may look like noise or exception data. And most of the data mining techniques, they during the pre-processing techniques, they do remove the data considering it's going to be noise or exception data. But in some cases like fraudulent activity detection, right, the outlier data is going to be more interesting than the regularly occurring pattern, and we call it as outlier mining, right? So that's about the introduction to the analytics techniques that can be applied to a data set. To start with, about clustering algorithms. So clustering is collection of data objects that are similar to one another within the same cluster, and it is dissimilar to objects in the other cluster. So you know the objective of clustering, right? So you need to maximize the intra-class similarity and minimize the inter-class similarity. So clustering is also known as unsupervised learning. So they don't have any predefined classes. So you will not be able to train a model. So we'll be just grouping the similar objects together, right? So to start with, we'll read this algorithm, learn this algorithm, and then we'll solve a program using k-means clustering. So the k-means clustering is a basic clustering algorithm. It proceeds as follows. So first, among the data points available, it chooses k objects initially as a cluster mean, right? So randomly we'll be choosing some objects as the cluster center, and we'll be finding the distance between the other objects and the cluster center. So for each of the remaining object, an object is assigned to the cluster which is most similar based on some distance between the object and the cluster mean. So once all the data points are assigned to a cluster based on the nearest distance, again we are expected to compute the new mean of the cluster, right? So this process iterates until the criteria function diverges, right? So this is how the algorithm is given, right? So the input is going to be k, the number of clusters. So you have n number of data points. So D is a data set containing n objects. K is going to be the number of clusters. So the procedure is that you need to arbitrarily choose k objects as the initial cluster centers, right? So among the available data points, k data points are chosen as the initial cluster center, and the next step, you need to assign each object to the cluster to which the object is most similar based on the mean value of the objects in the cluster. So we use some distance metric like Euclidean distance metric or Manhattan distance metric or Minkowski distance metric to identify the distance between the point and the cluster center, and we'll be assigning all the data points to the nearest cluster, right? So once all the data points are assigned to the cluster, we update the cluster mean. So we'll continue the process until there is a convergence. So convergence occurs when the cluster mean does not change or the data points are repeatedly assigned to the same cluster. Right. So let me show you an problem about how to work with the clustering algorithm. So is it visible? The Word document is visible. Hello.
Yes, sir.
So the Word
Sure.
document is visible, right, madam? K means clustering. Example 1.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is the problem. I want you to look into it. Right. So we have 8 data points, and you are expected it to cluster into 3 clusters. Right. So this is how K-means clustering algorithm works. So you have 8 data points, A1, A2, A3 till A8, and our work is to cluster it into 3 clusters. So initially we are going to choose our own cluster centers. So randomly we have chosen A1, A4 and A8 as the cluster center. So right, so among the 8 data points available, we have chosen the first data point, 4th data point and 7th data point as the cluster centers. So once you choose the data points as the cluster center, you can go for some distance metric. So in this case, we are going to use a distance metric, which is going to be the absolute value of the distance between x2 minus x1 plus y2 minus y1. So we are using the Manhattan distance metric, which is used to find the distance between the 2 points, data points, using the formula absolute value of x2 minus x1 plus absolute value of y2 minus y1. Right. So if you look into this problem, so row wise you can write all the 8 data points, and these are the cluster centers, right? 2, 10. We have randomly chosen 3 data points as the cluster center. 2, 10, A1, A4 is going to be 5, 8, and A7 is going to be 1, 2, and we are going to use this distance metric. You are going to use this distance metric, absolute value of x2 minus x1 plus y2 minus y1. So what is the distance between 2, 10 to 2, 10? It's going to be 0, right? And what's the distance between 2, 10 to 5, 8? It's going to be 3 plus 2. So 5 minus 3, it's going to be 5 minus 2 is going to be 3, and 10 minus 8 is going to be 2. So it's going to be 5. And similarly, the distance between 2, 10 to 1, 2 is going to be 2 minus 1 is going to be 1, and 10 minus 2 is going to be 8. So it's going to be 9. So you are going to find the distance between each and every data point and the cluster center. And you are going to assign the data point to the nearest cluster center. So which is going to have the smallest distance. So A1 is nearer to this 2, 10, right? So it is going to be assigned to it has the lowest value, so it is going to be assigned to the cluster 1. And then we'll look for the next data point. So A2 is going to be 2, 5. So again, you are going to find the distance between 2, 5 and 2, 10, 2, 5 and 5, 8, 2, 5 and 1, 2. So the distance between 2, 5 and 2, 10 is going to be 5. the distance between 2 comma 5 and 5 comma 8 is going to be, right, 3 plus 3 6. The distance between 2 comma 5 and 1 comma 2 is going to be 1 plus 3 4. So now the second data point is assigned to the cluster 3. So cluster 3, the second data point is assigned. So similarly, using this distance metric, all the data points are assigned to the nearest cluster centers, right? So we have assumed that there are only 3 clusters and all the data points are assigned to the nearest clusters, right? So once all the data points are assigned to the nearest clusters, we are going to compute the cluster mean of the data points in the cluster, right? So in the first cluster, we have only one data point, 2 comma 10. In the second cluster, you have 5 data points, right? 8 comma 4, 5 comma 8, 7 comma 5, 6 comma 4, and 4 comma 9. So how will you find the cluster center or cluster mean? So it will be 8 plus 5 plus 7 plus 6 plus 4 divided by 5 for x value, and similarly 4 plus 8 plus 5 plus 4 plus 9 divided by 5 for y value. So the new cluster center value will be 6 comma 6. And cluster 3 contains only 2 data points, so it will be 2 plus 1 divided by 2, 5 plus 2 divided by 2, right? So 2 plus 1 divided by 2 is going to be 1.5, and 5 plus 2 divided by 2 is going to be 3.5. So this is going to be the new cluster center. So 1.5 and 3.5 is going to be the new cluster center. 6 comma 6 is the new cluster center, and 2 comma 10 is going to be the new cluster center. So again, I will repeat the process, right? So again, once you find the mean of all the points in a cluster and you identify the new cluster centers, again you are going to start with the second iteration. So second iteration, you are going to plot all the data points row wise, and the new cluster centers are 2 comma 10, 6 comma 6, 1.5 comma 3.5. Again you are going to find the distance between 2 comma 10 and 2 comma 10. It's going to be 0. 2 comma 10 and 6 comma 6, it's going to be 4 plus 4, 8. 2 comma 10 and 1.5 comma 3.5, it's going to be 0.5 plus 6.5, it's going to be 7. So again, it is assigned to the first data point is assigned to the cluster 1, since the lowest value is going to be 0, or the lowest value corresponds to cluster 1. We are going to assign this data point to cluster 1, and we are going to take the second data point. Second data point, again the distance between 2 comma 5 to 2 comma 10 is going to be 5. 2 comma 5 to 6 comma 6 is going to be 4 plus 1, 5. 2 comma 5 to distance between 2 comma 5 and 1 comma 5, 1.5 comma 3.5 is going to be 0.5 plus 1.5, 2. So in this case, the second data point is allotted to the third cluster, right? So we repeat this process. So once all the data points are assigned to the clusters, again we are expected to find the mean of all data points in a cluster, right? Now in the first cluster, we have 2 data points, 2 comma 10 and 4 comma 9. So these 2 data points are present in the cluster 1, and in the case of cluster 2, we have 4 data points, right? 8 comma 4, 5 comma 8, 7 comma 5, and 6 comma 4. So 4 data points are available in the cluster 2, and only 2 data points are available in the cluster 3. 2 comma 5 and 1 comma 2 are the 2 data points available in cluster 3, right? So again we are expected to find the mean of all the data points in the particular cluster. So what will be the mean? 2 plus 4 divided by 2, 10 plus 9 divided by 2. So 2 plus 4 divided by 2 is going to be 3. 10 plus 9 divided by 2 is going to be 9.5. So this is going to be the new cluster mean. Similarly, you are expected to find the cluster mean of all the objects in the cluster 2. So it is going to be 8 plus 5 plus 7 plus 6 divided by 4. So basically you have 4 data points, so it's going to be divided by 4. And similarly 4 plus 8 plus 5 plus 4 divided by 4. So the output will be 6.5 comma 5.25. And in the case of cluster 3, you have only 2 data points, right? So the mean value is going to be 2 plus 1 divided by 2, 5 plus 2 divided by 2. So 2 plus 1 divided by 2 is going to be 1.5, and 5 plus 2 divided by 2 is going to be 3.5. So now this is going to be the new cluster centers. So the new cluster centers are going to be 3, 9.5, 6.5, 2.5, 1.5, 3.5. Again, we are going to plot it as a cluster center, and again you are going to find the distance between all the data points and the cluster center, right? So how long will we repeat the process? So it converges at the fourth iteration. Fourth iteration, it converges means we stop when the data points are assigned repeatedly to the same cluster, right? So the iteration 3 and iteration 4, if you look into it, so the cluster 1 contains the data points 1, 4, 8. So here also, the iteration 3 also, cluster 1 contains the data points 1, 4, and 8, right? So cluster 1 contains the data points 1, 4, and 8. And similarly, cluster 2 contains 3 data points, A3, A5, A6. So here also you have A3, A5, A6, and cluster 3 contains 2 data points, A2 and A7. So if the data points are repeatedly assigned to the same cluster, we stop it. So cluster 3 contains A2 and A7. The next iteration also, cluster 3 contains A2 and A7. So in the fourth iteration, it converges. So the third iteration, the data points are repeatedly assigned to the same clusters in iteration 3 and 4. Then since the cluster mean does not change, we stop it and we say that these are going to be the cluster centers for the data points, and these are going to be the clusters. So the final clusters are going to be, so we say that objects A1, A2, A1, A4 and A8 are similar and they belong to cluster 1. And similarly, the objects A3, A5 and A6 are similar and they belong to the cluster C2. And the data objects A2 and A7 are similar and they belong to the cluster C3. So this is how K-means clustering algorithm works. So the disadvantage of this clustering technique is that it's very difficult to predict the value of K. So you may have K number of clusters, or you may have N number of clusters. The K value can be any N value. So, so if you are able to know in advance the number of clusters, this method can be used efficiently, right? So the working of K-means clustering is very simple. You have N data points, in this case 8 data points. We are going to choose K less than equal to N as a cluster center. So 3 data points are chosen as the cluster center, A1, A4 and A7. So 3 data points among the available 8 data points are chosen as the cluster center. And what we do is that we apply a distance metric. So we apply an Manhattan distance metric, which is going to be distance between 2 points is given by absolute value of x2 minus x1 plus y2 minus y1, right? So based on the Manhattan distance metric, what we do is that we assign the data points to the nearest cluster, right? So based on the distance metric, we are going to assign the data points to the nearest cluster. Once we assign all the data points to the cluster, what we do is that we find the mean of all, we find a cluster mean. So once all the data points are assigned to the available clusters, we find the cluster mean. So we find the mean of all data points in a given cluster and designate them as the new cluster centers, right? So once the mean of all data points in a cluster is computed, we designate them as a new cluster centers and we repeat the process. So these are going to be the new cluster centers. And again, we are going to check for convergence. So again, we find the distance between each and every data point and the cluster center, right? So once you find the distance between each and every data point and the cluster center, we'll be allocating each and every data point to the nearest cluster center based on the distance metric. Again, I will find the mean of all data points in a given cluster and so on. So the process continues until the system converges. So we say that we'll stop the clustering process once the data points are repeatedly assigned to the same cluster and the cluster mean does not change. We say that the system converges, right? So this is how k-means clustering algorithm works, right? So any doubts regarding k-means clustering algorithm? Right, participants, it's a very basic algorithm. So here you have n data points. You are going to choose k number of clusters. Yes. So are you able to follow the problem? K means clustering.
Yeah. So no doubt, sir. You can proceed, sir. Yeah,
Okay,
understood.
ma'am.
Understand.
Thank you.
Sir.
So in the case of k means clustering, just you have some n data points
Hello,
and
sir.
amount. Tell me,
Hello,
madam.
sir. 1 minute, sir. One participant is about to ask question. Ma'am, you can ask the question. Hello.
Tell me, madam.
Ma'am, participant has unmute the mic, sir. 1 minute, sir. Ma'am, anyone want to ask a question or we can proceed it, ma'am? Yes, sir. You can proceed, sir.
Okay.
Sir, they are asking whether any tool for doing this iteration.
Any tool for doing this iteration? Basically,
For doing.
data analytics, we have tools like R programming. So even now next I will teach you linear regression, classification, and so on. So regarding tool, what I would like you to say is like R is a very like a very good programming language that is available for exclusively available for data analytics. So whenever you want to make it within a few lines of code, so everything have a lot of inbuilt functions for predictive analytics, for classification and clustering. So in R programming, just we need to read the data. You need to apply a library function to find the clustering. To find a clustering of data, and you will be able to visualize the results. So like R is a programming language for clustering. Right. For non-computer science people, I would like to suggest there is a tool called SPSS. It's a tool from IBM. It's like a statistical. It's a tool for statistical packages. Where given some data set, is loaded. You can do some classification algorithms like decision trees, Bayesian classifier, and so on. It's a license ware, so you need to pay it for using it. Like if someone is from agricultural domain and they want to know only they want to work only with some tools, right? So they like they have some data, they need to cluster some crops based on the similarity. So you need to cluster like regions based on the similar vegetation in a location. Then you can go for tools. So tools I would like to suggest like SPSS is a very popular tool from IBM. And if you look for some open source tools for data analytics, you have Python programming. Python, you have support to all the machine learning techniques. And similarly, R programming is a language for data analytics and data visualization. So all the data analytics techniques can be done easily without uh, any you'll be able to apply the packages and you'll be able to get the data, get the insights about the data using R program. Right. So this is about k-means algorithm. So the algorithm is quite simple, right? So you have n data points. You are going to arbitrarily randomly choose k among n data points as the cluster center. So once you choose randomly some cluster center, then you are going to assign each and every data point to the nearest cluster center based on some distance metric. So I have used Manhattan distance metric. You can use any distance metric, Euclidean distance metric, Minkowski distance metric, or whatever distance metric that you are familiar. You can use some distance metric to assign the data point to the nearest cluster based on some distance metric, right? So once all the data points are assigned to the nearest cluster, what we do is that we compute the cluster mean of the new clusters. So we'll repeat this process till the system converges. So the system converges when, like the algorithm converges when the data points are repeatedly assigned to the same cluster, right? So for subsequent two iterations, the data points are repeatedly assigned to the same cluster, and if the cluster mean does not change, right, then we say that the system converges. So this is K-means clustering algorithm. So it's based on a partitioning technique. So this algorithm comes under partitioning technique, where we have three constraints. So the value of k should be always less than equal to n, and each and every data point should be assigned to a cluster, right? So each and every data point should be assigned to a cluster, and the cluster should contain at least one data point, right? So these are the constraints in K-means cluster. So the value of k should be always less than or equal to n, and each and every data point is assigned to one of the available cluster, and each and every cluster should have at least one data point. So you also have some other clustering techniques like density based clustering techniques. So discover clusters with arbitrary shapes. Density based clustering technique has been developed. So these techniques are typically regard clusters as dense region of object in the data space that are separated by a region of low density, right? So we'll study something about DB-scan algorithm. So similar to K-means clustering algorithm, there is a algorithm called DB-scan algorithm. So the DB-scan stands for density-based spatial clustering of applications with noise. So you have some geographical information system. You want to write a cluster a particular type of vegetation in a region, right? Or cluster information available in a database based on some geographical information, then we can go for DB-scan algorithm. So it's a density-based spatial clustering of applications with noise. So this algorithm grows regions with sufficiently high density into clusters. So only if the region has some sufficient density, then only it grows it into clusters, and it is used to discover clusters of arbitrary shapes in spatial databases with noise, right? So let me show you the algorithm. So in this case, density-based clustering technique, DB-scan algorithm, first you need to randomly choose a point P, right? So any point can be chosen as a data point randomly among the available point. You need to choose any randomly available data point and retrieve all the points density reachable from P with respect to epsilon and minimum points. So you need to retrieve all the points that are available within a specific radius, and you need to check for the minimum points. So within a particular radius, if minimum number of points are available, then we say that the point P is a core point and a cluster is formed, right? So you are going to randomly choose a point, and you are going to separate two parameters. One is going to be the radius, which is going to be the epsilon value, EPS value, and min points is going to be the minimum number of points that is expected to be there in the cluster, right? So if P is a core point, then a cluster is formed. Whereas if P is a border point, so the data point is available in the border and no points are density reachable from the point P, then the DB-scan visits the next point in the database, right? So this process continues until all the points have been processed. So this is the algorithm behind the density-based clustering algorithm, DB-scan. So if you are going to randomly choose a point, and you are going to supply two parameters. One is going to be min points. So you are expected to have at least minimum number of data points in your cluster. So I say that I do recognize a particular cluster only if it contains minimum number of data points, and similarly I need to look for radius of the cluster. So the radius is going to be the EPS, epsilon value. So I'm going to choose a data point and I'm going to check whether it's going to be a core point. So if it is a core point, a cluster can be formed. So a cluster can be formed if it is a core point and it has min points, minimum number of points within the radius epsilon EPS. Whereas if it is a border point, then certainly that you will not be able to get the minimum number of points within the radius EPS, and will discard it as a border point. So once you check for all the available data points, you will be able to identify the core points that are available in a data set, right? So DBSCAN is again a very popular algorithm used in a geographical information system. So again, it's very quite simple, right? So randomly choosing a point, check for two parameters. One is going to be radius. So within a radius, if some minimum number of data points are available, min points are available, then you consider it as a core point, and you say that a cluster is formed, a cluster can be formed from the core point P. Whereas if P is a border point, what happens? If P is going to be some border point that is present outside uh, the cluster, then you cannot have some minimum number of points that is reachable within the radius EPS, and we discard it, right? And we visit the next point of the database. So this is DBSCAN algorithm. So this is again a popular algorithm used in geographical information system for working with spatial databases, right? So in your research work, if you are going to do some crop like vegetation mapping in a location, then you are expected to use this DBSCAN algorithm, right? So that's about k-means clustering and DBSCAN algorithm. So next we'll study something about k nearest neighbor classifier, and we'll study something about Bayesian belief classifier. So this is a simple problem that we discuss in our classes, right? When we teach classification, right? So you have your data set. So you have your data set which is going to have data as well as the class label. So you have two attributes and one class label. So this problem I will teach in two slides. A nearest neighbor classifier, right? So you have two attributes. So the attributes are going to be age of a person and loan amount of a person. The amount of loan a person has availed from the bank, and the last is going to be the class label, which is going to be default, which is going to be whether yes or no. So yes means he has got a loan amount and he has defaulted the loan. He has not paid the loan. He belongs to a default category. Whereas no means he does not belong to a default category. Right. So for example, the first record, it denotes a person aged 25. He has got a loan of 40,000 from a bank, and he belongs to a category default is equal to no. Right. So he has paid loan amount. So right. So he belongs to a category default category is equal to no. And if you look into the last record, right? So last record, a person with the age 33, he has got a loan for loan amount 1,50,000 from the bank, and he belongs to the category default is equal to yes, right? So this is going to be a training data set since it contains both the attributes as well as the class label. So totally you have six attributes, sorry, 6 records with class label no, and you have 5 records with class label yes. So 5 records, they belong to the class label default category is equal to yes, and 6 records they belong to the class label default category is equal to no. So once this is going to be a training data set based on which you are going to build your model. So once a model is constructed, some unknown record, you are expected to predict the class label, right? So now the test case input is like a person with age 48, he applies for a loan amount 1,42,000. You are expected to predict the class label. So you are expected to predict whether he is likely to pay the loan or not using K nearest neighbor classifier, right? So this is the problem statement. So the next slide, this slide contains the solution for the problem. So again, we'll be using some distance metric. So distance metric, here we are going to use Euclidean distance metric. So it's going to be square root of summation of so it's going to be square root of summation of xi minus yi whole square, right? So it's going to be x1 minus x2 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square, right? So for example, this is the test data for which we are expected to predict the class label, right? So the test data is going to be 48,000, 1,42,000. So these are the two attributes. So you are expected to find the nearest neighbors. So the algorithm works based on the nearest neighbors. So for example, I want to predict the telecom service provider of a particular customer, right? So how will I predict it? I will identify his nearest neighbors, right? So if the nearest neighbors, most of them they belong to the telecom service provider category, Airtel, then I will predict that he is likely to have Airtel as his telecom service provider, right? Whereas if you look for a student who uses a lot of data services, and all his friends they do hold Jio as their telecom service provider, then possibly he is also likely to have Reliance Jio as his telecom service provider. So based on the nearest neighbors, we are going to assign the class label, right? So similarly, in this case also, we find the distance between the test record and the training record. So we are going to find that we are going to apply the Euclidean distance and find the nearest neighbor for this test input. So the test input is going to be 48 and 1,42,000. So it's going to be square root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. So it's going to be 48 minus 25 whole square plus 1,42,000 minus 40,000 whole square. So for ease of understanding, we are not considering the attribute age. So let us consider only the attribute loan amount. So the distance then it's going to be 1,42,000 minus 40,000 is going to be 1,02,000, right? So the third column, the fourth column, it denotes the distance. So the distance between the test data set and this first record is going to be 1,02,000. Similarly, we are going to find the distance between the test data point and the second data point. So the second data point is going to be 48. The test data set is going to be 48, 1,42,000. So 1,42,000 minus 60,000 is going to be 82,000. Similarly, 1,42,000 minus 80,000 is going to be 62,000. So similarly, we are going to find a distance between each and every training data set point and the test data set point. And if you look into the data set, who are the nearest neighbors? So the lowest values are going to be 8,000, 22,000 and 42,000. So these three records are the nearest neighbors for the test data set. So out of the three data sets, three records, two records they belong to the class category yes, default category is equal to yes, and one record it belongs to the default category is equal to no, right? So then in this case it predicts the person is likely to default the loan. So this is how K nearest neighbor classifier works. So classification means you have a training data set. So training data set contains some attributes. So you have two attributes and the last column denotes the class label. So the class label denotes the default category. So whether a person defaults a loan or whether he pays the loan promptly. So based on this data, you are expected to build a model. So once a model is being constructed, given an unknown data set for which the class label is to be determined, right? So this is the unknown record for which the class label is to determine. You need to predict the class label using a classification algorithm. So you have some n number of classification techniques like starting with k nearest neighbor classifier. You have decision trees, support vector machines, Bayesian classifier, right? Then you have some rule-based classifier. You have backpropagation neural network based classifier, convolutional neural network based classifier. So everything it works on the principle like you are going to use the training data set to train the system to build a model. And once a model is being constructed, so once the model is being constructed, given an unknown record for which the class label is unknown, it should be able to predict the class label correctly, right? So we applied a simple equality and distance metric. So it's going to be the distance between the test data and the first data point is going to be square root of summation of 48 minus 25 whole square plus 1,42,000 minus 40,000 whole square. So we are going to ignore the first attribute since the age attribute it has very low value compared to loan. And for better understanding, we have ignore the age attribute. We are going to consider only the loan value alone, right? Loan attribute alone. So 1,42,000 minus 40,000 is going to be 1,02,000. Similarly, 1,42,000 minus 60,000 is going to be 82,000, right? So similarly, we are going to find the distance between the test data set and all the training data set points, and we are going to identify the nearest neighbors. So the nearest neighbors based on the distance metric is going to be 8,000, 22,000 and 42,000. So among the nearest neighbors, two neighbors they belong to the class label is equal to yes, and so the neighbor 1 and 3 they belong to the class label yes, and the neighbor 2 he belongs to the class label is equal to no. So we predict that the person is likely to default. The, the person is likely to default belong to the category default category is equal to yes, right? So this is how k nearest neighbor classifier works. And the next thing is that Bayesian belief network. So Bayesian belief network it allows the main feature of Bayesian belief network is that it allows a subset of the variables to be conditionally independent, right? So it uses a graphical model of relationship. So we use nodes and links. So nodes are used to represent the variables. So nodes are used to represent the random variables, and the links are used to represent the dependency among the variables, right? So here we say that the nodes x and y are the parent nodes of the node Z, and similarly y is the parent node for the node P, and there exists no dependency between Z and P, right? And this graph doesn't have any loop or cycles, right? So this is how we represent the information by means of a Bayesian belief networks. So we are going to represent the information in a Bayesian belief networks by using nodes and edges. So nodes are used to represent the variables, and links are used to represent the dependency among the variables, right? So if you look into this image graph, the nodes x and y are the parent nodes of the node Z, and y is the parent node of the node P, and there exists no dependency between Z and P, right? So for example, this is an example where they are using a Bayesian belief network for a health information system. So lung cancer, so predicting lung cancer based on family history and smoking history, right? So if so, this is how we are going to represent that conditional probability. So if a person is having both a family history for cancer, lung cancer, and is also a smoker, the probability of occurrence of lung cancer is going to be 0.8, right? Whereas if a person does not have any family history, and is not a smoker, right? If it's not a does not have a family history and is not a smoker, then the occurrence of lung cancer is going to be 0.1, right? So you will be given some probabilistic representation of the occurrence of an event, and based on the probability for the combination of the particular set of variables, you'll be able to find whether a person can suffer the chances of a person getting lung cancer or not. We go for Bayesian networks, right? So you have lung cancer. Lung cancer is a disease. It is caused like the major reasons behind the lung cancer is that if a person has a family history and he is a smoker, the chances of lung cancer is high. So here these two variables, they represent the nodes and the links represent respectively. So based on this graphical representation, you can give the dependency between the different nodes. The case of Bayesian belief networks, and then it finally will be solving it using some probabilistic techniques, and you will be able to check whether a person is likely to have lung cancer or not, right? So the last topic I need to discuss is like regression analysis. So regression is widely used statistical tool whenever you go for some predictive analytics, like prediction. Whenever I need to do prediction, then we need to go for regression. It is used to establish a relationship between two variables, right? So one variable is called predictor variable, which is whose value is gathered through experiments, and the other variable is called response variable, whose value is derived from the predictor variable. So for example, consider a simple linear regression equation, y equal to ax plus b. So y is called the response variable. So the output or the response variable is given by y, and x is called the predictor variable, and a and b are the constants which are called the coefficients, right? So a and b are the constants which we call it as the coefficients. So for example, straight line regression. So we'll study a simple linear regression. It involves a response variable y as a function of single predictor variable x, right? So it's the simplest form of regression. So where we assume that there is going to be one response variable and one predictor variable. So the predictor variable is going to be x and the response variable is going to be y. So it is given by the equation y equal to b plus wx, right? So where the variance of y is assumed to be constant, and b and w are the regression coefficients specifying the y-intercept and the slope of the line respectively. So the regression coefficients can be rewritten as y equal to w0 plus w1 x, right? So the value of w1 can be found out by using the method of least square, summation of xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar divided by summation of xi minus x bar whole square. You will be able to get the value of w1. So once you get the value of w1, you will be able to also get the value of w2, right? So again, this is a simple problem to demonstrate linear regression. So linear regression, you have two variables, x and y. So x is going to be the predictor variable and y is going to be the response variable, right? So the table shows that the relationship between the years of experience and salary in $1,000. So a person with 3 years of experience, he draws a salary of $30,000, right? And a person of 13 years experience, he draws a salary of $72,000. And a person with 1 year experience, he draws a salary of $20,000. So you are expected to predict what will be the salary of a person with 10 years of experience, right? So the goal is to predict the salary of a person with 10 years of experience. So using this data, you will be able to find the mean of x and mean of y respectively, right? So x1 plus x2 plus till xn divided by n gives the mean value of n, mean value of x bar, and similarly y mean is given by y1 plus y2 plus yn divided by n gives the mean value of y, right? So once you find the mean, compute the mean of x is going to be 9.1 and the mean of y is going to be 55.4 respectively, right? We are going to substitute these values to get the value of w1. So how do you get w1? Using the method of least square, it's going to be xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar, summation of xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar divided by xi minus x bar whole square, right? So it's going to be 3 minus 9, so the x mean is going to be 9.1, so 3 minus 9.1 plus 30 minus 55.4 plus 8 minus 9.1 plus 57 minus 55.4, so divided by the mean of x value alone, xi minus x bar whole square, so 3 minus 9.1 whole square plus 8 minus 9.1 whole square and so on. You will be getting the value of w1. So once you get the value of w1, you will be able to get the value of w0. So w0 is equal to y, mean of y minus w1 into mean of x, you get the value of w0. So once you get the value of w0 and w1, you will be able to plot it as an equation. So y is equal to w0 plus w1 x. Now for predicting the salary of a college graduate with 10 years of experience, so you are going to substitute the value of x by 10. So it will be 35 plus 23.6. It's going to be $58,600. So this is how we compute the linear regression, right? So in the case of linear regression, you have one predictor variable, whereas in the case of multiple regression, we have multiple predictor variables, right? This is a simple function using R programming. So we have some x is going to be a vector representing the values of x, and y is going to be a vector representing the value of y, right? So the relation is going to be lm y tilde x. So print relation means it will give you the x value as well as the intercept value, the coefficients value in R programming, right? So in simple linear regression, we have one predictor variable and one response variable. But in multiple regression, we can have more than one predictor variable and one response variable. So you have more than one predictor variable, right? x1, x2 till xn, and we have one response variable. It is known as multiple linear regression. Here the variables a, b1, b2, they refer to the coefficients, and the variables x1, x2, xn are the predictor coefficients. So again, this is a sample program using R programming for multiple regression. So multiple regression, right? So this problem is to comparison of different car models in terms of mileage. So we are going to compare the performance of mileage with respect to displacement of the cylinder, horsepower of the cylinder, weight of the car, and so on, right? So you are expected to find the mileage per gallon of a particular engine with respect to displacement of the cylinder, horsepower of the cylinder, and weight of the cylinder. So empty cars is a data set available inbuilt in R programming. So we are going to pass only these 4 attributes as the input, and we say that we are going to build a model where the mileage per gallon, the car mileage per gallon is computed as a function of displacement of the cylinder, horsepower of the cylinder, and weight of the cylinder. You print a model or you plot a model, and you get the coefficients for the different, you get the coefficient for y-intercept and different coefficients, right? So this will give you the solution for multiple regression. Similarly, you have logistic regression, which can be used as a used to model response variable as a categorical value such as true or false, right? And finally, you have auto regression model where the value of the output depends only on its past value of yt minus y1, yt minus y2, and yt minus y3, right? So auto regression model is one where the output depends on the past values of yt minus y1, yt minus y2, and so on. So yt is equal to b naught is going to be a auto regression zero model, like a or 1 model means you have y equal to a plus bx. So yt is going to be a function of beta naught plus beta 1, yt minus 1 is a or 1 model. Whereas in the auto regression 2 model, yt is going to be a function of beta naught plus beta 1, yt minus 1 plus beta 2, yt minus 2. It's auto regression 2 model. So the application is like today's stock price is dependent on previous day and day before previous day, right? So stock price or product price of any commodity is dependent on today's price and previous day price. We go for this auto regression model. So let me show you an example for auto regression model and in Excel, and also give you like a demo of how to construct an auto regression model. So right, so this completes the presentation. So we discussed about the basics of analytics, the techniques that are commonly used for analytics like classification, clustering, prediction, time series analysis, sequence rule discovery, association rule mining, and so on. And regarding the clustering techniques, I am sharing a problem with you, right? K means clustering algorithm, and density based clustering techniques, DB-scan algorithm. And for classification algorithm, we have gone through K nearest neighbor classifier algorithm and Bayesian belief networks. And finally, predictive analytics for predicting the yield of a crop, right? So you can go for linear regression or multiple regression. So linear regression means the output variable depends on only one predictor variable. So the yield depends only on rainfall, then it's going to be linear regression. Whereas you can have n number of parameters, then you can call it as multiple linear regression. So the yield depends not only on the rainfall, but also based on the humidity, right? Based on the temperature, based on the soil condition, right? So if you have n number of factors in computing the crop yield, then we go for multiple regression. So auto regression means based on the past values of the output, you will be able to predict the current value. So that's the idea behind auto regressive model. So let me show it auto regression model. Check whether I will share the Excel sheet also with you. Later you can check whether you can make it by yourself. Right. Right. So this is the problem that is solved using auto regression. Right. So in the year 2000, the salary of a person is going to be 1.99 million. 2001, it's going to be 2.29 million. 2002, it's going to be 2.38 million. So you are expected to predict the salary of a person in 2011 using auto regression. So first what we do is that we go for first order auto regression. So first order auto regression, you are going to retain this value x, this is going to be y, and this is going to be x1. So using this, we'll be plotting, we'll be using some data analysis tools, and we'll be computing the, right, so using data analysis tools, we'll be finding the intercept value and the value for x variable. So you need to check the p-value. The p-value is going to be 0.0001, which is well below the alpha value 0.05, right? So the alpha value will be given. So usually the alpha value will be given, and the data set will be given. So using that, since the p-value is going to be less than the alpha value, we are going to use this parameters as intercept and x variable respectively, right? So In the 2011, the salary is computed by A plus BX. So it's going to be, intercept value is going to be 0.441 plus 3.27 into 0.88, which is going to be 3.32, right? So initially we tried with third order auto regression. So third order means the same data, like so initially you have some data, you need to plot the data like x and y. So one step, one row down, it gives a yt minus 1. One row, again one row down, it gives yt minus 2, and again one row it gives yt minus 3, right? So this is going to be yt minus 3, and for this data you are expected to get the coefficient, and if it is going to be, if the p-value is going to be greater than 0.05, you are going to ignore it. So we will not be using third order regression. Second order regression also we do the same way. So you have some data set, you are going to compute y as a function of yt minus 1, yt minus 2, right? So you are going to compute the values of x-intercept and x1 and x2 value. Here again the p-value is going to be greater than 0.05, so you are going to ignore it. And in the case of first order regression, right, the p-value is going to be 0.001, which is going to be very well below the alpha value, so you can use it, right? So I will show you how to perform auto regression. So the data set is, and take the same information, right? So this information will be, so let me open a data set and right. So you can look into this. So since I'm running out of time, so let me close with this. So you can look into this problem for auto regression. So auto regression, y value depends on the case of third order auto regression, y value depends on yt minus 1, yt minus 2, and yt minus 3, right? And you are expected to check the output p value, and since the p value is going to be greater than the alpha value, you are going to go for a second order auto regression. So in the case of second order auto regression, again the value of p value is going to be greater than 0.05. So we are going to go for the first order auto regression. So Right. Since I'm using a tablet computer, it's not possible for me to open two Excel sheets parallelly. Should I? Right. So that's it for today's class. So you can, if you have any doubts,
Any doubts, please put in the chat box now. Kindly put in the chat box or unmute your mic and you can ask.
support vector mission.
SVM.
What about yeah? Support vector mission is a classification algorithm. Again, a classifier algorithm like k nearest neighbor classifier or we have a number of classification techniques. So whatever I have taught you is a basic classification model. Support vector mission is a classification technique which constructs a hyperplane. Like the objective of any support vector mission is to construct a maximum origin hyperplane that separates two different classes. And when the data is not linearly separable, also we can go for support vector missions. Right. So using kernel functions, you can map data from low dimensions to high dimensions, and you will be able to find a hyperplane that separates multiple classes.
Any other one? No?
Uh,
Any questions? Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. I am Vikas Phate. I am from
Voice is breaking because
K. I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Sir, disease identification for disease identification on tree disease identification of the fruit. It is quite difficult in the real time to identify the particular disease because in case of suppose a citrus fruit also or sapota, at a time fruit may be affected by so many diseases. To particularly predict this one disease, what is your opinion about accuracy of getting real time on tree disease?
Uh, so you want to check for multiple diseases, right, sir? Instead of so this classification algorithms, like you'll be able to detect whether it has a disease or not, like by using a model
Oh,
like so for a particular you can check for whether it's a particular disease or not using a simple classification algorithm. You can go for other rule based classification techniques, sir. So once you
okay.
check there is a particular disease, then there are some rule based classifiers which you can apply. So generally we do go for ensemble of techniques. We don't go only for
Okay.
a single technique for any problem. So we go for an ensemble of techniques to have better accuracy. So like I would say that you can go for a rule based classifier. Once you check for a disease, then you can go.
Root based classifier.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
from Sridevi now, sir.
Yes,
Veda
ma'am.
and Orange tool are similar to above said tools.
Can you
Hello?
repeat it, madam? Data?
Veda and Orange tool are similar to above said tools. You have
Yes,
said
madam.
some tools also there.
Yes, madam.
Veda
There's a
Orange tool are similar, she's asking.
yes, madam. There's a tool Veka available. Uh, Veka also will be able to work with a data set and you can get some results. But what the issue in tool using tools is that you will not be able to get insights how really things work, right? But for non-computer science professionals, you can go for Veka, SPSS. Veka is again a freeware open source tool. Yeah, people can use it. Veka is a popular tool for open source people, so they can use it for getting some developing some models, madam.
Any other questions now? method is most important. Sir,
Tell me, madam.
Dr. Marcus sir is asking for opinion mining, which clustering method is most important?
Opinion mining, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Opinion mining.
Madam, like there are n number of clustering techniques, like different types of like density based clustering techniques. You have like agglomerative techniques, hierarchical techniques. So it all depends on the data set we are using. So it's not like any, there exists a very good clustering algorithm which can solve all the problems. So we need to apply different clustering algorithms for different data sets. And for a particular data set, even the basic clustering algorithm may work very well. So it all depends on the
But,
data
sir,
set.
it's my question, sir. Actually, we use k-mean clustering only for all the groups. So, k-mean or k-n neighboring group.
Hmm.
Uh, so k-mean suits for all the classification.
K means is a clustering algorithm, madam. It's a very basic algorithm. So like
It suits for all the things, actually.
yes, madam, the same algorithm can be applied to any type of data set. But nowadays we go for ensemble techniques, madam. Like classification, we don't use a simple classifier. We don't use a single classifier. Instead, we go for ensemble classifiers. Ensemble means we have multiple classifiers. Like majority voting will resolve the class label, right? So we'll for disease prediction, what we do is that we'll not use a single classifier. I'll be using support vector machine. I'll be using Bayesian classifier. I'll be using k nearest neighbor classifier, and each classifier counts a vote to the class membership function. So among majority voting, we will be assigning the class label. So like the current work is based on ensemble techniques or deep planning techniques for classification and prediction. We don't use a single technique and uh, get the results.